And we're live. Hopefully. Double check. I don't know if the connection goes terrible. Connection's excellent. Double check. 5,000 kilobytes per second. That's exactly what I wanted. Yarnhub. No, now will the tanks. There you go. Alrighty, so hello there. First live stream since coming back to Salford University for another year, doing a master's in documentary production. And I understand some of you are probably going to be triggered by the title of this video. You're going to be saying, "OC, you're not a military historian. What colour is your military historian degree?" Point proven. Exactly. Where did you get it? Exactly. Where did Anamarchy get his? Oh, don't ask him that because he will probably counsel me. So obviously, thing is, let's just say I know a bit about HMS Prince of Wales. You know, I know a bit about it. I have a bit of a thing about Prince of Wales. I've been writing a book on HMS Prince of Wales. I've been getting back into getting that, and obviously, so pretty much, I'm probably one of the biggest HMS Prince of Wales, the Battleship 53, that one, HMS Prince of Wales, probably a big fan of that ship, and obviously a bit of an expert on that ship. But obviously Yarnhub, they do excellent documentaries, they do excellent videos on YouTube, and obviously I decided to react because, you know, this is something that I've been wanting myself for a while to happen, to, you know, for them to make, very well respected, like documentary animation stuff, and obviously this is a topic which, you know, I have a lot of stuff on, even though I'm actually technically an expert on the actual why France lost the Second World War, as that's what my dissertation was on, why France lost the war. But obviously I thought, oh, I'll give this a watch, you know, fact check it with my facts from my book that I wrote, because there's certain stuff with my book, and I hope that they do it right, but we'll see. So let's get into it. Let me just... Yep. We're in.
It's the early dawn on the 10th of December 1941. A task force of ships are off the coast of Malaya.
That's a bit loud. Sorry. Too loud. Right.
They're hoping to launch a surprise attack against the Japanese, who they think are in Kuantan.
Yep, that's true. Oh, they've really done something with that.
The head of the task force is the HMS Prince of Wales and its captain, John Jack Leach.
Okay,
Sir,
I refer to him as John Jack Leach.
Signaling distress. Bloody fools! We're under radio silence.
Yeah, that's true.
This better be good.
Got John Leach accent wrong, but you can't really perfect an accent of him.
Leach speaks urgently with Admiral Phillips.
Sir, Tenedos is under a
That's
Japanese
actually true.
bomber attack.
But in reality, Phillips
It's the worst possible
didn't give two
situation.
shits.
With horror, they need to accept that the Japanese have found them, and the entirety of Task Force Z is within range.
I just want to stop it a sec. The actual animation, what they've done detailing, is beautiful. They've got HMS Prince of Wales in her camouflage perfectly, as well as the actual gun emplacements and everything. John Leach doesn't look like John Leach. But they got Phillips right. Phillips was a short man who was obviously visible. John Leach looks a bit too young, in my opinion. He looks like he's in his 40s or something when he was in his 50s. Unless I'm completely forgot the history and John Leach looked completely different than what I imagined. But still, it's actually very good. They've done a very good job with what they've done. With this, it looks very lifelike, the actual people, so they've done a really good job.
Outside, the air trembles with the engines of Japanese.
I forgot to say, yeah, the Tenos did actually get attacked. Tenos was split away from the task force, and that she was further south than the task force, and what happened was that the Japanese thought, oh god, this is Prince of Wales, and just unleashed all their weaponry, and then they were like, bro, no it's not. But because they panicked and sent a signal, obviously broke radio silence and whatnot, the Japanese picked it up, so they knew they were in the area, and, well, continues from there.
These aircraft, they come through the clouds and line up their target. First, they go for the aging battlecruiser,
Okay, I'm just going to talk a bit about from the Japanese perspective, unless they talk about it later on, but I just want to clear something up. So the Japanese weren't actually, when they caught the actual fleet, they were actually coming back. They had launched some of their bombs at the Tainos, and they were coming back. And what happened was that it was actually by complete accident that this happened, because they had thought, crap, we haven't found them, we're heading back to base. And then it was on the way back that they ran into them, and they went, oh crap, they're down there. So it was actually a case of just bad luck that this event happened.
HMS Repulse. The bombs are away. Right? They scream down towards the ship, and a tall column of water erupts on the starboard side, followed by several more on the port side. Captain Tennant of Repulse orders,
all hands to action stations.
Except so that was a terrible ad break. YouTube's like, no. Yeah, HMS Repulse had terrible anti-aircraft guns, like awful.
A 250-kilogram bomb screams down. There's an enormous explosion as the bomb hits the Repulse amidships. The captain is thrown to the floor, as are the rest of the bridge.
I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure about that. Repulse was in fact hit with bombs, but I don't think the explosion towards the midships actually caused Tennant to become suddenly covered in powder and looked like the bridge had been hit. Yeah.
The bomb has penetrated through the port seaplane hangar and devastated the armored deck below. It's a scene of carnage as the fallen lie around the hangar. Repulse emerges from the fray with a plume of smoke coming from her upper deck where she'd been struck.
Damage report. No critical damage.
Her speed, though, is unaffected, and she steams on, emitting just the faintest smoke curl. On the Prince of Wales, Leach turns and gives an order.
We're fucked.
Action stations. Repel aircraft.
More shapes emerge from the clouds. It's 67 Japanese bombers.
That's what they did, was that they knew the Japanese were coming, so this is what made the sinking of the Prince of Wales and Repulse really what the fuck, moment in history, because at Pearl Harbor they weren't at action stations, they didn't have a clue, the ships weren't moving, they were stuck in port. Here, the ships were moving, the ships had every man on their gun, the ships knew the planes were coming, and they still got sunk, and that's when everyone went, oh no, oh dear, uh-oh. So, yeah.
Two squadrons separate and approach the capital ships in a pincer formation, designed to reduce the effectiveness of the British anti-aircraft gunfire. From 8 miles away, they begin their dive. Philip's demeanor hardens as he broadcasts the order,
all ships increase speed to 25 knots. All captains are granted freedom to maneuver.
An officer hunches over his radio.
For a message. Over.
His face drops.
Sir, the aircraft to port appeared to be carrying torpedoes.
There is no such aircraft around.
Yep. Okay, so, yeah, the thing is that they didn't actually believe that an aircraft had the capability. They believed that the only aircraft that had the capability of carrying torpedoes were aircraft from aircraft carriers, and that basically there is no way that a friggin' Japanese aircraft carrier is in the area, and there's no way that they took off from land. Because, fun fact about the Nell and Betty bombers, they were the longest range bombers of the war. That's how they were able to get so far. That's how they were able to get the ships. That's why the idea of the thought of Japanese aircraft attacking, bomber aircraft, heavy aircraft, medium aircraft, attacking at that distance, at that range, for Phillips is completely... It shouldn't happen. It's like, what? No, there's no way. No one's designed an aircraft like that. But unfortunately for him, Japanese did.
Phillips observes the sight through binoculars and watches aghast. The Japanese aircraft continue to lose height and fly into some low cloud before appearing off the Prince of Wales port bow. 9 Japanese planes start their approach. They see the British ship in the distance as they come in skimming the waves. There's a flash as one by one the British anti-aircraft guns open fire. Tracers arc up
5.25
towards
inch
the
guns
black
are
dots
opening
in the
up.
sky, and after 12 salvos, the guns switch from controlled fire at individual planes to barrage fire, hurling a curtain of bursting shells to provide a flak barrier for the hostile planes.
Okay, I don't
desperately
think the
trying to
primary
force them
guns
to
actually
drop their
fired.
torpedoes early.
Yeah, that's actually
The
true.
Japanese planes keep coming. The loaders begin.
That's actually true. They tried to do it to deter the Japanese aircraft, because the actual British policy on anti-aircraft gunnery was to shoot in front of the target as opposed to try and hit the plane, because if they basically shot in its path, they could divert the aircraft away. But the issue is, the Japanese were complete psychopaths. They did not care. They did whatever, however, the way they wanted to do it. They were taught, if you're getting shot at, just shake it off and keep going. And basically the same policy came to planes. If they're shooting at you, just fly through the bullets and drop your bloody payload. Do it for the Emperor. If needs be, kill yourself. And because of it, the British anti-aircraft policy didn't exactly work when against Japanese aircraft, as opposed to German and Italian aircraft, where it was successful.
Trembling as they push shells into the magazine feeds, hoping that something, anything, will down just one of the planes. The British anti-aircraft gunners, however, are unprepared for the sheer speed of the Japanese planes. Most of the British anti-aircraft shells burst well behind the aircraft as they bear down upon the British ships.
Okay, they've gone differently
Battered
with
but
this.
still flying, the Japanese pilots bravely push on until their torpedoes are in range. They drop. The fish are away. On the Prince of Wales, there's horror as Captain Leach barks the order,
Hard to port!
attempting to slip through the tracks of the torpedoes. Meanwhile, the Japanese bombers are too large and too fast to pull away quickly, and they fly straight at the Prince of Wales,
Yep,
machine
that's
gunning as they
actually true.
go,
They machine gun
reaching the
them.
battleship well before their torpedoes do, and causing disorder on her decks, killing and wounding sailors as they approach. The British gunners are now firing at near point-blank range. A Betty bomber takes a flak shell to the wing, which snaps it from the body, causing it to spin and dramatically slam into the water.
Yep, Prince of Wales shot 3 down.
But there's no
few
time
down.
to celebrate. 2 torpedoes move straight towards the ship, and there's no avoiding a hit. All the men aboard brace for impact.
Another ad. Wow. Okay.
The first one strikes. A pillar of water erupts on the port side of the Prince of Wales and punches through the outer hull. But thankfully, there's only limited flooding. Moments
Never mind.
later, the second torpedo strikes the Prince of Wales under her stern, blasting open a hole some 4 meters high and 6 meters wide. It's a critical blow. There's now a direct route for water into the very heart of the ship, sweeping sailors off their feet and drowning the ship's engine room. Her
So the first torpedo, I don't believe, actually made any contact at all. There was only one actual contact that was made, one torpedo hit that was made on Prince of Wales, which is that torpedo, which blasted the... I was thought that the actual torpedo hit occurred at the actual... let's just backstep it a bit. I'll show you the area.
Moments later, the second torpedo strikes the Prince of Wales.
I was led to believe that this torpedo actually struck further aft, actually along the propeller, because you got the propellers work that a shaft goes through the hull, and that you got the propeller on the end, but you've also got this sort of part that essentially let me just I can't spell, I'm dyslexic. Here. This area here, I believe that it struck there, causing that to break off, and because the propeller was still spinning, essentially, it was causing vibrations that were essentially breaking bulkheads, ripping off rivets, and that caused, essentially, that flooding to happen. But...
under her stern, blasting open a hole. There's now a direct route for water into the very
it was
heart
a
of the
critical hit.
ship,
It did
sweeping
result
sailors
in
off
the
their feet
engine room
and
getting
drowning the ship's engine room.
flooded relatively
Her
quickly.
speed immediately starts dropping
It was
as
just
water
halved,
floods
just
into her.
straight away.
Emergency pumps are unable to stop the steady rise. The
And
sailors
then-
continue to attempt repairs, wading through water now
Yep,
waist deep
that's
to
true.
get to the hull.
That's true.
She begins listing the port.
Yep.
On the deck, the gunners keep shooting to the point where the air can almost burn the skin. But their rounds explode behind the Japanese planes, and the men brace for another impact. All the sailors can do is watch, wait, hold on and hope. The tracks zip towards the ship, and a torpedo strikes the Prince of Wales. Her electrical system at the stern suffers massive damage. Without power, both the steering motors are dead. The Prince of Wales is a sitting duck. She's now a death trap.
Okay. That's interesting, because I was led to believe that that was just a one torpedo hit. But, could be wrong. That's how I wrote it in my book, so. But then my book isn't published, so. But I did read it, and I did get the information from several other pieces of sources in the highest traditions of the Royal Navy, and various other stuff I forgot. Yeah, it's a long time ago I wrote this book.
Captain Leach orders,
Flood the void spaces of the starboard torpedo defense system. We need the ship level.
he needs
Yep.
the ship level, or almost level, so that his men can train their anti-aircraft guns, which are currently
Yep.
pointing too high.
But it was.
But this also makes the ship more vulnerable.
It was the 5.25-inch guns that they needed as the anti-aircraft guns, because that's what they were partially designed to do. The 5.25-inch guns is that they were so that they could train high to shoot aircraft, but obviously because she's got a list to port, obviously they can't get the guns high enough to shoot up at the aircraft, and therefore they're useless on the one side, whereas the other side they've got the issue, but in reverse, is that they can't train them down low enough for the aircraft that are flying at a low level, because if you're essentially like that, you can't train them down at the aircraft coming down at a low level.
Vulnerable should she receive another torpedo strike. The sailors strap on any small arms they can to the side of the ship in a last-ditch defence. By 12:19,
about that,
the
but-
Prince of Wales is left with little anti-aircraft protection. The gunners pour water on their
Also, I love that detail there. If we go back, this detail here, this on the side of the ship, I forgot what it's called. I think it's bilge something, I forgot what it is. But that was actually on the side of the Prince of Wales, and that might be brought up later in the video. Let's see if they do.
Wales
mention
is
it.
left with little anti-aircraft protection. The gunners
Stress.
pour water on their boiling barrels, and the loaders scramble to and from the magazine, knowing this will be a gamble at best. A gunner looks up.
Contact. Due east.
A huge formation of aircraft sweep down like a cloud,
Yep, they just kept coming.
losing
I
height,
think it was like
and
4
once again
waves.
splitting into two attack formations.
And then
6
they brought
petty
in the
bombers come in low and race towards the Prince of Wales on a raised starboard side,
bombers came
flying
in,
under
and
the
the
anti-aircraft fire she could offer on that side. The sailors begin firing with anything they could raise from below, but it's to no avail. All the fire goes harmlessly above the attackers.
But there we go, they mentioned that. That's
Torpedoes
good.
drop in quick succession.
That's
The sailors
correct.
watch in horror as 3 torpedo tracks come straight for them. There's a hit.
Several hits. There's like 4, 5 hits. They just
A jagged hole tears right through the ship as the
Because she
first
was
torpedo
very-
blows clean out through the other side.
Yep.
The force of the current dragging sailors under and out of the ship. The second torpedo strikes almost directly under B turret, shooting a plume of oil and water up the side of the ship. The final torpedo strikes the unarmored section of the hull, where there is only 1-inch thick steel. There's nothing Captain Leach can do. The steering gear of his ship is completely useless.
The drone age has begun.
Yeah, that's true. Those were the hits that basically, because the KG-5 class battleships were very well armored vessels, and the armor was actually arguably better than Bismarck's armor on the sides. But obviously, because only the sides were protected, and because you took a port list, you had this soft underbelly of the vessel that was exposed, and obviously, as a direct result, that.
Meanwhile, the Repulse is putting up a valiant defense against her attackers.
And then this is when Repulse
Captain
goes absolute
Tennant
mental.
turns his great ship swiftly towards the diving aircraft, readying his vessel to pass through the tracks of the torpedoes that he knows are coming. The torpedoes drop, and as they run in the water, they leave a telltale trail of white bubbles. Captain Tennant brings all his seamanship to bear as he manages to dodge the tracks of every one of the torpedoes dropped by the two Japanese squadrons, as well as the others coming from the attack on the Prince of Wales going on at the same time.
Yep, that's true.
Each member of the bridge holds on as the ship leans and lists from Tennant's audacious steering.
And
the crew
it's interesting because, yeah, that's actually true, 19 torpedoes, because what Tennant was doing was that when he was on the bridge, he wasn't exactly looking through the binoculars. Well, he was, but what he was doing is that he would actually he'd stand on the bridge, and the guy would be on the wheel, and he'd just do that with his hand to gesture which way to turn the wheel, which is quite cool of him.
Later with pride of 19 torpedoes missing due to the maneuver, and how the huge ship had been thrown about like a destroyer. Incredibly, he also avoids all the bombs from high-level bombers dropped from 12,000 feet. But at 12:20 on the Prince of Wales, Phillips is left with no option. Reluctantly, he orders his radio signallers to break radio silence and transmit to the rest of the task force to come to the aid of the Prince of Wales and the Repulse.
They should have done that from the start. They should have called
At
in
12:23, the remaining 20 or so.
The thing is that actually, Tennant did actually call in aircraft actually relatively early to the battle. He called them in he basically contacted Singapore saying that we need help now because the Japanese aircraft are here. And yeah, but I'm not too sure. I'm going to see if they do the thing about the signals that Prince of Wales put up.
So torpedo bombers almost simultaneously pounce on Repulse from different directions. Her main guns keep firing against the incoming enemy. The 15-inch shells fly straight into the water, hoping to create a splash powerful enough to get enemy planes into the waves. But the Repulse crew is out of luck today. The first 8 aircraft drop their torpedoes on her starboard side. Captain Tennant turns Repulse to starboard to dodge the torpedoes again. But then the 3 aircraft attack Repulse on her port side.
Yep, that's what they did.
Captain Tennant can do no more than continue his turn to starboard to avoid the first 8 torpedoes.
Yep.
The deckhands and gunners keep up as much fire as they can, but they know it will make little difference. Men fall to the floor and cover their heads. A torpedo hits Repulse amidships on the port side, but does little significant damage. She continues maneuvering and steams at 25 knots. Tennant is not going to stop.
Set a new heading for...
He never finishes his sentence as a torpedo hits. Immediately, 9 aircraft attack Repulse from different angles. 6 planes attempt to work their way round to her starboard side, while the remaining 3 Betty bombers go straight in at her port side.
The way in which they did it is because from the Japanese perspective, they were attacking. They were just going full frenzy with the attack, like doing their own thing. But they couldn't get Repulse, and they were getting really irritated that they couldn't get Repulse. And like, what the hell? And then the squadron leader said, "All right, okay," because they had 2 ways of communication. They could communicate from aircraft to aircraft, the whole squadron, but they could also communicate within from different crew members, so from the bomber, the gunner, the pilot, whatever. And basically the squadron leader guy basically said, all right, here's what we're going to do, boys. We're going to attack them from both sides. And so that's when they got the idea to attack from both sides and do that because they were having issues trying to sink Repulse and get any hits on her, and then the order was they did more coordinated attacks as opposed to the whole frenzy that they did, and they were able to get Repulse.
It's a skillfully executed attack. Repulse's engines are still fully functioning, but with her rudder jammed, she's simply steaming in a circle. Could you withstand a massive strike? Test your skills by becoming a captain in World of Warships, the sponsor of today's video. They release new content every month, so you can always count on enjoying fresh gameplay experiences. In World
Okay, yeah, delete. Yeah. I don't recall her rudder ever being damaged during the final battle, but I just recalled it as being one actual main attack that happened on her from both angles.
Back on the Repulse, the gunners don't know what to do.
Tell the bridge we can't get a good view of the planes. We need to change course.
When there's a big war going on somewhere in the universe, that always...
Thank you.
Enemy incoming!
The three Betty bombers fly forward, seemingly unfazed by the ack fire the British can muster, and they drop their torpedoes in a slow sequence, as if contemptible of the Navy's attempts to fend them off. And they continue their course, strafing the deck and scattering the sailors as they overfly.
Of this!
A Betty ignites and spins rapidly out of control and thumps into the water.
I think Repulse got like
Shortly
one or
after,
two planes.
a gunner leveling his
Principal's
weapon
got,
at the
like, 3 or 4.
approaching bomber sends a shell straight through the cockpit. And the Japanese aircraft explodes in midair.
I don't like how they picked in Repulse as better than Prince of Wales.
It's a small constellation. 2 explosions tear through the lower decks,
She just got
immediately causing
absolutely
catastrophic
just
flooding
demolished
and destroying the engines.
when they knew how
Repulse
to get her.
lists to port and looks done for. But the Japanese are not finished
Yeah.
yet. At 12:25, the other 6 torpedo bombers skim the waves towards Repulse's starboard side. The men on deck watch helplessly before scattering for cover. All 6 planes release their torpedoes at once. The wait is agonizing. 2 rudimentary shots ring from the guns as
Just got a ping. Nothing important.
the planes fly overhead, but the torpedoes are still coming. There's silence. A rating puts his head over the rail. He's rocked by a pummeling explosion.
Oh yeah.
Even though 5 missed, a final torpedo scored the single hit. Over the last 4 to 5 minutes, Repulse had been hit by 4, possibly 5 torpedoes. Very quickly,
I think she was
the
hit
list
with more torpedoes, but yeah, the actual final blow that happened, that occurred, and I believe it was several torpedoes hitting into a hull, caused the entire ship to basically just look like the Arizona in bloody Pearl Harbor, just get lifted out of the water and drop back down.
support starts to increase, with men leaning and staggering their way through the ship.
But because she
All
had received
51 of the Japanese torpedo bombers had now completed their attacks, but only 8 of the 34 high-level bombers had done so. 2 squadrons of high-level bombers remain that had not yet attacked, and each plane carries a single, huge, 500-kilogram bomb.
Yep.
At 12:33 p.m., the first 9 of these bombers starts a high-altitude attack. But their bombs are released too early and fail to find their target, missing by a considerable distance.
Yep, that's true.
Repulse, with multiple large holes in her hull, now is quickly sinking. The other ships from Task Force Z have now come to their aid. Captain Tennant orders,
All hands to the main deck. Life rafts cut loose. Abandon ship.
not one man had left his place of duty until being ordered to do so. But now, dozens of men pour up through the hatches from below.
But yeah, it was just literally Repulse sank in a matter of minutes compared to Prince of Wales, and also they did forget that during the battle at one point, what happened was that before, well, it was during Repulse's like deja vu moments, drifting torpedoes, that Prince of Wales, because Electric had basically been killed, because that's what eventually did happen. The electric just went off, so the pumps didn't work, the 5.25-inch guns didn't work, the hacks didn't work, the RDFs didn't work, and basically they had to rely on basically flag signaling, and they hoisted up signal that they were unresponsive, they were dead in the water, and then Repulse started to go towards Prince of Wales, and that was when the Japanese launched their 2 pincer attack on Repulse, and then yeah, so it was a pivotal moment in the book.
Or scramble down ladders from stations high in the superstructure. The crew start jumping over the side into a spreading pool of oil. As the ship lists further, men begin climbing up the sloping deck and start to slide down the huge raised starboard side of the battle cruiser. Hundreds of men get away in minutes. However, below decks, many loudspeakers are not working, and the men don't hear the order to abandon ship.
How many ads am I gonna get? This video would be more dramatic if there wasn't as many ads.
As she continues rolling over to port, the huge torpedo bulge and its jagged torpedo hull emerge out of the water, and the stern rears up to expose her still turning propellers. The stern then slips below the waves and disappears, leaving her bow hanging in the air, before it too vanishes beneath the waves. Just 11 minutes after the first torpedo had struck her, Captain Tennant fights his way to the surface, emerging by a nearby raft.
Yep.
There's another attack. The Japanese are still not done. A 500-kilogram bomb hits the Prince of Wales, adding to its inevitable defeat. By 12:50 p.m,
the bomb that struck the Prince of Wales struck in the cinema area amidships, which was used as a makeshift hospital at that point in time for the crew that had been shot at by the Japanese, and explosions and various stuff. And essentially the bomb had penetrated through and exploded in that area, killing a lot of the men inside. Yeah. But no, Tennant did in fact survive, but I don't know if he actually passed out. That might have been the different Tennant. That might have been William Turner of the Lusitania. No, it was William Turner of the Lusitania. Not too sure about Tennant. I did know that Tennant did in fact survive.
the end is nigh for the Prince of Wales. She's taken on an estimated 18,000 tons of water.
Okay, that's interesting as well from this, because you can see here that the camouflage scheme on Prince of Wales, she's got this part here which is white, which is interesting. It's a white colour, and this part here is sort of a dark blue. It could just be the whole the shadow effects of the video, but it's interesting. But then again, it could be that it just looks white because it's there it's grey, but it looks kind of brighter, so maybe that's what it could be. But there are various, a lot of people get really confused and iffy with the actual camouflage scheme on HMS Prince of Wales. I believe HMS Prince of Wales had the grey camouflage scheme as opposed to the sort of light blue camouflage scheme that her sister King George V had. Yeah.
Captain Leach orders all the wounded to leave the ship.
This is the end.
No.
He leaves the bridge and comes down to the quarterdeck, where a large group of his crew had congregated.
Gentlemen, she's been badly riddled. We need men to try and maneuver back to Singapore. If you go, that's fine. His Majesty needs every sailor possible. But let's help our old girl out one last time, eh?
Oh, oh no. Why did they have to add that last part? But that's a no of sadness rather than a no of, oh, this is annoying. The actual order that Leach actually did thingy was they basically, everyone who wasn't integral to the defense of the anti-air guns on the ship was to abandon ship. At this point, the Japanese had left. The Japanese had expended all their torpedoes, and at that point they had and the bombers had left the area. So they were actually, you know, they had left the ships to themselves at this point, so there wasn't no fear, but there was still a fear of another Japanese air attack, and so because of that, Leach gave the order that everyone else could leave, except for those who were essential to either saving the ship or protecting the ship anti-air fire.
There's a slight hesitation. Surely the ship is sinking. They haven't got a hope of navigating to a friendly port. A silence follows before two men let go of the rail and salute. A petty officer and several other ratings also step forward, salute, and fall in behind Leach. Captain Leach smiles and declares an order to those present.
Aside from gunners, marines, and officers, those who wish to board the Express can do so.
Okay, well, they just force-fed me my own words. Shit. I was forced to swallow my own words then, never mind. Everyone's like, bro, you didn't watch enough of the clip, boy.
God save the king.
He then climbs back up to the bridge to join Admiral Phillips. Hundreds of men started crossing over to Express
HMS
on
Express.
makeshift lines and gangplanks.
That picture is very low in the waterline. Listing. There's the photo.
But as the Prince of Wales rolls further over onto her port side and her starboard side lifts, the gap between her and Express starts to widen. The gangplanks fall into the sea, but men continue to swing across on ropes in the cable that still join the two ships. Under the incredible strain, the cable finally snaps. The list to port starts to worsen. It was clear the ship was now beyond any help from aircraft, destroyers or tugs. Leach comes to the realization that his ship's not going anywhere and reluctantly gives the order.
Abandon ship.
The battleship's starboard bilge keel rises. The skipper of Express skillfully judges the last moment before he's forced to pull away, her hull bumping and grinding on the battleship's heaving keel and almost getting overturned herself. The destroyer suffers a 20-foot gash in her hull from the contact, but many men have been saved. Admiral Sir Tom Phillips remains on the bridge almost to the end. He and Captain Leach, silent, contemplating their defeat. The last reports seeing them alive are at 13:24, when the two men are on the side of the horizontal ship. Just before she rolls over and capsizes. The destroyer Electra sent a simple signal to headquarters in Singapore. HMS Prince of Wales sunk. Tragically, in 2023, the Malaysian Coast Guard seized a Chinese ship on suspicion of looting the wrecks. The Chinese dredger Chuan Hong 68 was detained. On board were found shells suspected to be from the HMS Prince of Wales and the HMS Repulse. Thanks again to World of Warships.
We're gonna fucking sink a Chinese boat. We're gonna fucking do that. Okay, there were the Phillips and Leach wasn't that I don't know where that last report came from. Apparently being on the side of the ship. Leach did abandon ship. At the very last point, he abandoned ship. Because he didn't intend to go down with the ship. He intended to remain with the ship as long as he physically could, but not to go down with the ship. And he was found in the water by one of the officers who he knew. Actually, let me see if I can find it in my book. Got it written down here. Got it here. Shit. So police SMS make these targets. Imagine the officers were. Don't know who the hell it is. It was someone. Did I put the name down? Lieutenant Commander. Don't know who the hell he was. Some Lieutenant Commander whose name I do mention his name somewhere, but it must be earlier in the book. But several people approached in the last minutes. He continued to tell them they urged them to leave us as nothing further could be done, but he got no reaction. The Admiral stood motionless, stunned by the shock of the events. His flag captain stood behind him. In life, their relationship had never been neither very close nor very warm. They were together at the end. Later, your father was seen in the water looking very blue. And then he says, "Go on, please," he said to him. "Tell me all." He began to say before pausing to regain what little composure he had left in him. His neck was broken. The pair said nothing as they both stared at each other blankly. Henry's face remained fixated with the same features. All hope that he had once had of finding his father was now gone. "Thank you, sir," he mumbled to him. "I'm very sorry," he said chokingly, with tears in his eyes. "He was a fine man, and we all loved him." The young boy nodded blindly at the man. "So did I." So, yeah, but his son, Henry Leach, was actually present at Singapore. He was on board the HMS, I want to say, Mauritanius? Something. She was a sister ship to Leander class, I believe. No, that was it. No, she was a sister ship to Edinburgh. Because he wanted to be posted on Edinburgh, but he wasn't because all of his friends got posted, and then he got very upset they didn't, because he was like, nuts. And then Edinburgh was later hit with a shell that destroyed and killed all of his friends that were there, so that was actually a safe thing. But also, he was originally assigned to be on Prince of Wales with his father, but the Navy basically said, "No, you're not being assigned with your son, bugger off." So Henry Leach was disappointed, and then obviously him and his father had time to catch up, and basically his father said to him, Captain Leach of Prince of Wales said to his son, "So what do you think of the Japanese?" And he said, "Well, let them come." And basically his dad just said to him, "You have no idea what's gonna come." And obviously he sailed the next day, and he was dead a few days later. And yeah, I think this was a very good video. I think this was very... Alvin's probably going to make another goddamn video like he did with that AMV. He was like, "Hey, can I borrow this for a video?" "Oh yeah, sure." And then it was like, bruh. So, yeah, there is another thing I want to react to. Something called, because I was advised to react to. I'm not going to do it right now. We'll do a stream for it, but a series that I haven't actually watched, which is this, the Enterprise series. Someone told me, "OC, you've got to watch this because you will cry. I know what you're like. You'll cry over this in the last part. The last 10 minutes." And I said, "I'm not watching it. I already know the story, but I want to know the full story. I want to see it from start to finish." Yeah, very good video by Yarnhub. Very good. Animation amazing. The way that they've improved, that literally looks... It's going to get to the point where their CGI looks human. I'll show you what Captain Leach actually looked like. And you can tell me if he looks similar to him. He looked like that. He looked like that. See, he had much of a thingy face. He did. He had a different face. Face.
Captain John Jack
He
Leach.
looks a bit too chubby.
Sir, Tornado
Get it. Shut up. So yeah, but no. It was a very good video. Very good what they did. Their details are slightly different. Their words are slightly different and what they say, but then again, they probably change it for more of a narrative. My book, I try and make it as literally like like the stories, the words are literally from the actual words that they say. Some of it is Hollywoodized, some of it is dramatized. I do depict the Japanese being bad. I also in the book depict Phillips being a bit arrogant and bad. Phillips is actually hardly like present in the Yarnhub video. Phillips was the reason they sort of got screwed. It was just the worst thing. Basically, the last battle of Prince of Wales and Repulse was the Admiralty podcast. You had two guys who were like, this is a stupid idea. And then the one guy was like, nah, this is a great idea. And it all just comes falling apart. That is literally what happened. Because Phillips was the commanding officer. Because the original plan... I'm just going to get a map up. What have I just done? Sorry. I'm going to get a map up. About... Give me a map. This is horrifically wrong. I need... Warrington. Give me Singapore. Give me Singapore. Give me Singapore. That's Russia. That's Ukraine. Give me Singapore. Here. To give you an actual idea, so we didn't just own Singapore, we owned basically all of this up to here. But, well, actually, no, a bit further than that. British Malaya. We owned British Malaya. It's that right there. But also British Malaya consists of this area over here that you can see. Now, what happened was that Prince of Wales, and I think he went sank. There's a bit more to it. What happened was that they knew when Japan declared war on Britain, because it wasn't just America. Okay, it wasn't like the moment Japan declared war on America, the Americans were the only people fighting the Japanese. Just to let you guys know, okay, it wasn't just the Americans, it was us as well. But what happened was that it was a bit of a cluster, because the Japanese had sent the Japanese battleship Congo and I forgot the other one, and that horrific vessel Chokai, who I cannot stand, as well as destroy flotilla and a lot of stuff, because they had because Britain decided, what should we do to deter the Japanese? I know, we'll tell the entire world in the newspaper that, look at this, this is what we got. What have you got? You got nothing. It's like when the Japanese were like, okay, so they approximately got 2 capital ships, all destroyers, so we need about 2 capital ships, get some heavy cruisers. How can we send the Kagi down there? Oh, Kagi's a bit delayed. Okay, that's fine. Okay, we'll also send these aircraft as well. Yeah, okay. I think that should be enough to sink them. So whilst we were basically telling them, oh yeah, we got all this stuff, Japanese were just like taking notes, like, okay, thanks. So what we believed was that we were, because Singapore was fortified. So all of the guns were pointing out to sea, blah, 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 blah. But the issue is that they were like, okay, the Japanese aren't stupid enough to just go and invade through Singapore. They're going to try and come off at this area here. Are they going to send landing troops? That's the only way that they can do it. That's the only way, because Japan at this point is over here. So they thought the Japanese landing ships are just going to go, whoop, so they need to find them. So that's why they sent Task Force Z to go out and hunt them. But the issue was 2 things. Japan knew they were going to do that, and secondly, Japan wasn't actually doing the landing invasions. The way, as we know infamously, the Japanese used bikes, and basically they said to Thailand, look, let us through your country or we'll Nanjing you. And they just went, okay. And so that's how unfortunately Singapore and British Malaya lost. It never should have happened. It was ridiculous. It was, it was just poor commanders. That's what it was. It was poor commanders, poor people, poor officers leading incorrectly. That's what it was, and that's why the British got our asses clapped by the Japs then. But basically, the Japanese, it was a cat and mouse game. We were trying to find each other. The Japanese was trying to find the British, and the British were trying to find the Japanese. And what happened was that during the night before, the 8th or 9th December, what happened was that they were actually within like 2 miles of each other. But because the British are like, the Japanese are somewhere, the Japanese are like, the British are somewhere, like this Chokai and her destroyer flotilla was there, right next to the British, and they're like looking like, where the hell are they? And what happened was that I think it was a British plane or a Japanese plane that dropped a flare, and it basically illuminated the area, and they went, oh shit, and they just both legged it. The Japanese pulled back and the British pulled back, and the British were on the way back. But unfortunately, what happened was that they received a report that apparently there were landings in the area. So Admiral Phillips, being the smart man he was, decided, hey, let's go take a look. And the lieutenant was like, don't, they're not there, stop it. But obviously, Phillips being Phillips and being the highest ranking officer, you can't really tell them no. If I had a time machine, I would have gone back in time and shot Phillips in the head. 2 ships would have been saved. Singapore might not have fallen. But anywho, what happened was that they went looking for their Japanese landing fleet, and at one point, this is how smart Phillips was, and this is why I hate him. At one point, Phillips decided, hey, there's a cave over there. Might be Japanese hiding in it. Get HMS Vampire to go in there and have a look. He literally got a destroyer to go in a cave to go look for the Japanese. At that point, Tennant wanted to murder him because it was wasting time, it was wasting everything, and they knew that the Japanese were coming, and then by the time they eventually got off, the Japanese found them. But if they hadn't have reported to that report, if they hadn't had gone and fucked around in the cave, they would have made it back to Singapore. And the plan was that if they couldn't be successful stopping the Japanese here, what they were going to do, which was the next plan, was to move over to the British Malaya here, this part of British Malaya. That way they would have been able to go at any part of basically the South China Sea if they so wanted to. And that's why that's what Tennant plan was. But obviously Phillips being Phillips was like, no plane can sink my boat. And then he went, oh, Nelly. So that was the biggest Nelly moment of his life. Banker said, oh, you have KG5, yeah, well, I have some bigger. Yeah, but they also had to keep it secret at the time because Yamato wasn't fully commissioned. Yes, it was like Lutyens versus Lindemann. Yes, they didn't have air support, that's why they lost. And by the time which is something that wasn't mentioned in the video, that air support did eventually turn up and saw the ship sinking. And it infuriated the crewmen in the water because at that point, you know, the damage had been done, ships were sinking, everyone was dead. And by the time aircraft were on the scene, that was it. It was over. It was done. Leach really loved the lady. Yep, he did. He was the one and only captain of the Prince of Wales. There was no other captain. Yep. So, yeah, I know, seeing Prince of Wales go down like that really does hurt for me, for someone who loves Prince of Wales. But my book does a very good job at, like, the whole story of Prince of Wales. There are some issues. There's like, I started working on it the other day, rewriting it, because I want to get it done. This is my, like, project that I've just wanted to do. Like, I've wanted to get this done, like, desperately. And, you know, How sucks. HMS House sucks. Oh, so you're still mad because you didn't buy that piece of HMS How? Yeah. I'm still mad over that. But no, it is a project. Like, there was this project I saw recently about this guy who's writing a fan Jaws book called The Book of Quint. It's a book on one of the characters from Jaws, Quint, and it's a prequel to the actual Jaws book. It explains about the character and his past, and you know, and it's really, you know, it's something that I've been hyped up for. I finally reserved my copy of it, so I'm gonna get it. So I can't wait to read that. And basically, because he eventually got a publisher for that, I think to myself, well, I want to get my book published. I want to get my story of the Prince of Wales out there. And you know, that's why, you know, this is like Azzling Crack 10. It's like Azzling Crack 10. It is something I want. I also accidentally signed up to a boxing match today, and I'm a bit terrified about that because I realised it didn't quite. It literally sank in as soon as I signed up to it. Of, oh God, I've just signed up to a boxing match against a random stranger in front of hundreds of people to get my face fucking smashed in. So I'm actually terrified about that because I've been like, I want a YouTube boxing match. I want a YouTube boxing match, and now I finally got one. I'm like, crap. I'm going to die. But luckily I've got 8 weeks to train, so hopefully Dojin help me. If you ever see this, Dojin help me. So yeah, anyway. So yeah. Anyway, what did I think of the video? I thought it was great, I thought it was good. Few inaccuracies, few Hollywoodisms, but you know, nothing really too major to take away from it. Great video. Let's see what the comments say. Oh. What's actually funny is that one of the guys, when this attack happened, was actually on the John. He was on the toilet. That is the most British thing ever. There's this scene in the film Freds, which is about Britain getting nuked by the Russians. And what happens is that one of the guys is on the toilet and he says, bloody hell, as the nukes go off. And he's on the toilet, and it's just funny because that's just British humour. But it's actually funny because one of the guys was on the toilet when this attack was happening. He was there and he could do all hands to action stations, and he's like, uh-oh. So yeah, spell Leech wrong, mate. Oh yeah, and the cat from HMS Prince of Wales also survived. Forgot about that. The cat from Prince of Wales survived, and then she went to Singapore, and then she buggered off, and then they lost her when the Japanese came. So the Japanese probably ate them as they probably ate the cat. Anyway, I'm going to end this video. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you guys later.